Good day, class. Welcome to Res 11, Methods of Research. This is a continuation of your 2.5 on conceptual framework. So how do we write this part? So since it's either conceptual framework or theoretical framework, I'll be teaching you the steps on how to write both. So for both frameworks, you need to go back to your research problem, your research questions, and consider your key variables. So for the example that you see here, the proposal that Dean Julius and I have with DOH, knowledge and attitude of mothers on vaccination, its implication to the prevalence of non-fully immunized children. So you can see here the variables knowledge, you have knowledge and then attitude of mothers, and then prevalence of non-fully immunized children. So we do not just create frameworks out of nowhere. Again, just like the selection of your topics, you need to review your related literature. But at this part, you need to do true review of your related literature. You will be making a listing of the frameworks that is used by the articles that is similar to your study. So you need to make a list and choose the theory applicable to your study. You can choose a theory, one theory, or you can see several theories and group all those. So what theoretical models are mentioned in your articles? So for step 3, it already differs for conceptual framework and theoretical framework, the writing of the framework itself. So the theoretical framework of the study is a structure that can hold or support a theory of a research work. So it presents the theory which explains why the problem under study exists, and therefore your theoretical framework is but a theory that serves as a basis for conducting your research. So to formulate a theoretical framework, you first specify the theory used as a basis for the study. For example, the theory that we had a while ago, your theory of planned behavior. Then it mentions the proponents of the theory. Theory of planned behavior by Zen in 1991. And then it cites the main points emphasized in the theory. In the example, you have there, the theory states that the attitude, subject norms, and perceived behavioral control altogether shape the individual's behavioral intentions and behaviors. And then you can add supports the exposition of the theory by ideas from other experts. You can also use other citations here which supports what this theory says. And then you have already here your illustration or your framework by means of a diagram. So your research paradigm for this one. And then you iterate these theoretical propositions in your study, how this framework relates to your study. So let's see an example for this one. So this research problem here, the major concern of the study is to determine the roles of school principals in improving reading skills of senior high school students in the division of Cagayan. So first step, specify the theory. So we check here. The study is anchored from the theoretical support of 3 models on the effects of principals on student literacy and achievement, and mentions the 3 models, and it mentions the proponents of the theory. This is by Hallinger and Heck in 1996 to 1998. And these models are, specifies the theory, the direct effects model, the mediated effects model, and the reciprocal effects model. And it cites the main points emphasized in the theory, where it says here, principles directly affect student outcomes without mediating variables. Mediated effects where principles indirectly affect student outcomes through mediating variables. And reciprocal effects model where principles and features of the school have interactive relationship. And then we go to the next part, supports. Other citations that supports the idea of the theory from other experts. So you will see here, according to Crawford and Torgensen 2007, who inspired high standards and confidence that the goals of high standards can be achieved. So you can see here other experts. And then next part here is to illustrate the theoretical framework by means of a diagram. So it doesn't fit already my slide. And then you reiterate his theoretical proposition in the study. So you explain how this theory affects or is of use to your research problem. So for conceptual framework, you can either first have your narration and then your diagram, or you can already have your diagram at the start, like this example for your peer tutoring and its effect on reading fluency of senior high school students. So you can first cite your conceptual framework or your research paradigm. So you have here already your figure, and you cited that figure 1 presents the conceptual framework of the study. And then you identify your variables. You point out the dependent and intervening or your independent variables. So you can see here it consists of two variables, peer tutoring as independent variable and reading fluency as the dependent variable. And it says here a lot about peer tutoring as independent variable pertains to la la la, and then another variable, reading fluency, refers to the ability to read la la la. And then you show the direction of the study. So it doesn't fit already the slide also. So we have only until there. So there are several ways to illustrate your research paradigm, but I've only included here three that are usually used for college students. So we have here the first one, your IVDV model, or your independent variable dependent variable model, which is usually used for experiment-based studies. So in this example, your peer tutoring is your independent variable and your dependent variable is your reading fluency. And this research paradigm shows you that in your study, you want to see the effect of peer tutoring to reading fluency of your respondents. So the next one is your IPO model, or your input, processes, and output. Sometimes it's IPOO model, or your input, processes, output, and outcome. So sometimes you have outcome here. So this is largely used to isolate the factor or major variable that causes the problem or phenomenon under investigation. So this is actually our IPO research paradigm for our vaccination study. Input here, you can see the prevalence of your non-FIC in IP communities, which is a part of your research question. The profile of the mothers, also a part of the specific questions. The knowledge and the attitude of the mothers in IP communities. And the process here, you will see we will do survey questionnaires, key informant interviews, documents review, triangulation, and focus group discussions. And the output that we are expecting is the prevalence of the non-fully immunized children and the level of the knowledge and attitude of mothers on vaccination. So third, we have the POM, or your proposed original model, which is used when the researcher presents an original diagram. So you've seen this from the previous slide. We have your CAP using the health belief model. This was made by Ma'am Crisostomo for her dissertation on overweight intervention study. So this type of model is usually used for higher or more complicated studies, wherein you cannot use IVDV alone or your IPO or IPOO model. So fourth and last step is to discuss the theory or concepts and its relation to your present study. Since the function of your conceptual framework or your theoretical framework is as a guide to inform the parts of the study, you need to connect variables under study or have the variables with values or with sub-variables which is congruent with your research questions, and Use the diagram to explain your framework. Justify each variable or subvariable and each line or arrow using logic and synthesized studies. So you need to cite authors from the literature review. So as a rule of the thumb, number of research questions is at least equal to the number of lines or arrows in your conceptual framework. So for your activity 2.5, draw and give a narrative for your conceptual framework. So in this PowerPoint video, we talked about what and how to write your theoretical or conceptual framework and your research paradigm. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching.